In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, I hereby convene this meeting of the Water Operations Committee of the Board of Directors of the Lower Colorado River Authority. Today is Wednesday, January 28, 2026, and the time is 10:09 a.m. A quorum is present. The General Counsel will record each committee member in attendance. Everyone, please stand for Pledge of Allegiance to American and Texas flags. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Would Vice Chair Whitten lead us in an invocation, please?
Yes. Let us pray. Dear God, we come before you today to pray for our nation. We know, Lord, that you can intervene in our circumstances and transform them. We wait in hope for you. Your word says, weeping may last for in the night, but the shout of joy comes in the morning. Lord, today we pray for peace for our country. We also pray for those who have been affected by this recent storm. Comfort and protect them. Thank you, Lord, for this wonderful organization who's always on the front lines, keeping the power and water on and assisting our citizens in any way possible. Give us wisdom and guidance as we navigate these situations and keep our employees safe and secure. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. If you would like to comment on any Water Operations Committee meeting matter today, please sign in at the registration table in the lobby. It's time for public comments, and I'll open up the floor for public comment. If we have anybody signed up to speak, I understand Shannon Hamilton is signed up. Ms. Hamilton? Yeah. I understand there are two topics you'd like to address. Okay.
Or just do it all now? What would you prefer?
Just go.
Phil, do you have a preference? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good morning. I'm glad everyone's here and safe this morning, and freezing rain did not occur this time, so no PTSD over frozen lines and electricity out. Thank you for all of that work that y'all did to keep us all warm and safe during the storm. In preparation for this meeting, first I'll address interruptible rates. When I was preparing, I was reviewing the meeting materials, and I just wanted to make sure everybody understands. There is a slide that caught my eye that is the summary of public comments. And there's one comment in particular I want to make sure you know CTWC did not make this comment. It specifically says that agricultural use of water is wasteful. That is not, yes, that is not what we believe. And I just don't want to get lumped into that summary. I have presented you all with our comments that you can read as we stated. And I just want to clarify, we respect the important role that agriculture plays in our basin and in our state. To avoid any confusion, we just wanted to say that we intended for our comments to be thoughtful, balanced, and focused on the value of water and water supply and sustainability. And I appreciate if you have an opportunity to read those before you vote during the board meeting. Okay, and then on the second item, I know it's a bit premature because you may not have seen the proposed staff updates on the water management plan, but I can go ahead and address those now and our concerns. We are so grateful to be a part of the process, and we thank John and Monica and the team that put so much time and effort into this proposal. It is better. And we recognize 17% regional growth that has been embedded into this plan is critical, that there are targeted adjustments on the release triggers that is very helpful, and the DCP savings have not been incorporated because we truly don't know what those are going to be. We can model and assume, but we don't know. But we do remain concerned about protection for the firm customers, especially in the upper reaches of the Highland Lakes. I can tell you, my phone has been blowing up from all of the text messages and phone calls on the pictures of the Brushy Creek pipeline. And you may be getting the same phone calls, but I mentioned it in previous comments. They keep posting these wonderful updates for the people in Cedar Park, Round Rock, and Leander. And as you can imagine, people that's out of basin, in our basin, in Upper Lake Travis and in Burnett, and people are concerned how much water, when they talk about the millions of gallons per day that can be pumped out of Lake Travis to supply water out of basin, people are concerned. And then the comment that was made that the intakes in these areas are not protected by LCRA to deliver water to intakes in the upper reaches. In basin firm customers, that's a concern. So we want to just ask that we have a new hydrologic reality, that historically low inflows that y'all have seen for years now are no longer a rare event. They're becoming our new normal, and we need to make sure that we're planning for that, and that the principal water supply for the Highland Lakes residents is Lake Travis and Lake Buchanan. And we want to make sure that they are, that the plan is as protective as it can be for the drinking water supply. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, Shannon, thank you very much for those comments. I appreciate y'all's participation in the water management plan and your thoughtful comments on ag water versus those who were not your comments. I think it is critical for us to remind collectively that we do have a contract with those customers who are out of basin, and we're honoring the terms of that contract in order to supply that water supply.
I appreciate that. And I would say the concern also is it's been increased several times. Now it's at 79,000 acre feet. How do we make sure that that contract isn't increased any further for their growth versus the sustainability? We're very worried about data centers, as everybody is. I sat on a call with Texas Water Development Board yesterday, and that's a big concern, and then we're sending water out of the basin. So I do understand it's a contract. It's just we got a lot of pulls on a limited amount of water.
Understood. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments to make? You must be Earl Foster.
I am.
Okay.
I hope that's a good thing.
It is.
I don't have any prepared comments when I come here, so this could be a little dangerous here. As part of the, thank you all for what you do, and thank you, Phil and John, for allowing us to be part of the water management plan. So that's really what I was going to speak on, was the water management plan. Hadn't been here in a while, so I don't know the process here. But we were part of the stakeholder process throughout the last year on the water management plan. I'm part of a firm group that has 10 other utilities involved with it, and we've been involved with this whole process. And is the plan a great plan? It probably isn't, but we do support it. We think there could be some changes in the combined storage, the low level. But those are things I think we're going to work on in the future and talking to LCRA about, and see if there's a way we could make it more protective for the firm customers. And as far as the regional, Brushy Creek Regional, I get a lot of calls on that. On I wish the media would understand peak flow, because that's what they're referring to whenever they talk about the 145 million gallons. That's not what's coming out of there. That's the peak flow during those peak times. And so I field a lot of calls on that also. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for allowing us to be a part of the process and continue to be part of this process on the water management plan, and looking forward to getting across the line. So thank y'all.
Thank you for your comments. We'll go to agenda item 2, approve the committee meeting minutes from our last meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Item number 3, basic condition updates. Kelly Payne.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chair Lewis, Chair Cooper, and board members. We'll walk through the basin conditions update. Here's the clicker. Let's see if I can get that pulled up. So we'll start off with the drought monitor for Texas. And as you can see here, things are getting a lot drier across the state. The picture on the left is from January 21st last year. The picture on the right is from last week, January 20th. Last year, about 54% of the state was in some level of drought or abnormally dry. And as of last week, about 95% of the state was in some sort of drought or abnormally dry. All right. So the next slide here. There we go. The next slide here is a close-up of our basin. And as you can see, it continues to be dry in the basin and drying out since the last really good rains we had, which were in late November. About 80% of the basin is in some sort of abnormally dry or drought level. And as you can see across the middle part of the basin there, from kind of the upper end of Lake Travis down close to Columbus, has moved into the third highest level of drought, which is extreme drought. And that's that red band that kind of runs through the middle of the basin where things neck down. It's dry and we need some rain. Here's a shot of the inflows. After receiving pretty close to the average inflows in November, December fell back into the low category. The flows in December were about 17,500 and some change acre feet, or about 27% of the long-term average for December. For the whole year, we were at almost average inflows for the year. But as you can see from the graph, the big purple bar in July really made up the lion's share of that inflow. I want to talk a little bit before we move on about we had a fin debit, which in layman's terms means we owed some water under the water management plan to Matagorda Bay. Because of the good inflows we had in November, we had a deficit on what we needed to provide to the bay. And so under the state-approved water management plan, we're required to release and maintain environmental flows in the Colorado River below Austin and into Matagorda Bay. Requirements change based on the overall basin conditions on March 1st, July 1st, and November 1st. And so you're probably familiar with March 1st and July 1st because those are typically our ag decision points. But we have another one in November where we're really looking at environmental flows and what is the health of the system from that standpoint. Well, as of November this year, we were in pretty good shape in the lakes, and we moved from a threshold only to what's called an OP3 for the November to February timeframe for freshwater inflows to Matagorda Bay. And so under that, we had a deficit after we got out of December, and we needed to make up that deficit. Now, I want you to understand that the bay only gets water up to what we had in inflows. We don't have to release stored water from previous months to impact that. And the way I like to think about that is the bay gets what it would have gotten had the lakes not been there, no more. And so if the lakes weren't there, what might have passed and made it to the bay? And so as per the rules of the water management plan and our obligations, we provided about 31,000 acre feet to the bay in late December and January. And y'all got a note about that, I believe, kind of explaining that situation. One good piece of news out of this is we got to exercise Arbuckle Reservoir. And so we decided that this was a good opportunity to exercise Arbuckle and use it one of the ways we expect to use it in the future. And so about 50% of the water that we released to make up the fin debit came from the Highland Lakes, from Buchanan and Travis. And the other 50% we released from Arbuckle Reservoir and made up the difference that way. And so if there is a nice side to this story is we were able to really get in and use Arbuckle and put it through its paces a little bit. Get my guys some experience operating it, get the river operations folks some experience thinking about operating it, because it's been that thing that's sitting down there that we're waiting for it to get finished. So that's kind of the situation at hand. Those releases have been made. We've made up that fin debit, and we're back into normal operations from that standpoint. Do y'all have any questions on that? That's kind of a different thing that we don't talk about very frequently.
Well, first of all, the 50/50, in other words, did we have enough storage in Arbuckle to meet the total requirement? But the question to me is always the health of the middle basin. We have to at some point release some flows to keep the middle basins in some type of ecological, environmental health of some sort. Does that come into play? Am I reading that right
No,
or wrong or indifferent?
That's correct. We've got in-stream flow requirements all the way down. And so we don't want, and they're upstream of Arbuckle. And so we can't really just cut off water from the Highland Lakes because we need to make sure we're keeping the health of the river. There's two different things at play here. There's in-stream flows in the river, and then there's freshwater inflows to the bay. And they're kind of interrelated, but they're separate in terms of accounting. And so we make releases from the Highland Lakes to make sure that we're hitting those in-stream flow targets and making sure that the river is healthy from Austin all the way down to the bay. And then the bay is a freshwater inflow, and that's where we can use Arbuckle to help take care of that. But it would be a rare situation, I believe, where we wouldn't release some water from the Highland Lakes for that, because we want to make sure we're keeping the river wet and healthy all the way down. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and then I think it's very important people know that you say you want to hold as much water we can, and we understand that 100%, this board does, but at the same time, you still have to have some releases going down, not to the lower basin, but for the middle basin, that
Yeah.
below this dam right outside the doors.
Correct.
Going down, otherwise it becomes stagnant, it becomes, in this situation with, especially we have right now, there's no flow at all, unless we release it. We just haven't had the rainfall, so it's not all about the lower, it's about the basin as a whole. We have to look at it that way, and I think you answered my question, and I think that's a smart way to do it, because you kind of have to do it, right, John?
Yes, sir.
And Kelly, so,
Okay,
thank
good.
you.
Thanks.
Kelly, I have a question. Did the 31,000 acre feet fulfill that deficit we had, or is there still a deficit?
It did. So we have completed the releases we needed to make to satisfy the deficit. We completed those releases last week. And so,
The other question is, because we used Arbuckle, 50%, I guess 15,000 acre feet roughly. So now you're going to develop new release models and stuff now because we have Arbuckle operational and stuff. Is that correct?
so we'll have opportunities now, and we'll be thinking about what's the flow in the river and how can we capture that if there's room in Arbuckle to save it for the next time we need it. That's correct. I think actually we're pumping some back into Arbuckle today. Either yesterday or today, we had some opportunity to pump some water and start refilling what we used for the fin debit. Okay, sure. So the next slide is just the medians, and not a whole lot of additional story here. The only thing I would add is that the median for the December inflow was about 50% of the median, the long-term median, where it was 20% of the average. If we look at the combined storage of Lakes Buchanan and Travis, comparing this drought to the previous drought of record, we're a little over 1 million acre feet more than we were in the drought of record. That's kind of January 1, 26 compared to January 1, 2015. So remember, we haven't broken the drought officially because we haven't filled up both Travis and Buchanan, but we're in a much better shape than we were when we're compared directly to the drought of record. And then we'll go into the projections real quick. As of January 1st, the combined storage of Lakes Buchanan and Travis was 1.725 million acre feet, or about 86% full. As of this morning, it was about 1.7 million acre feet, or about 85% full. And if you look, the dark line there on March 1st, that's our next decision point, and that decision point will not only impact or be a decision point on the environmental flows like we had in November, but we'll also make a decision on whether or not we make interruptible stored water available for our interruptible customers downstream in Pierce Ranch, Lakeside, and Gulf Coast. And according to these projections, every indication is that we will be in operation in all divisions downstream for the first crop growing season in 2026. Any questions on that? That'll be the first time since 2022 that we're in operation in the everything besides Garwood.
Just so everybody's clear, this is first crop only.
Yeah, we'll make
Second
another
crop is
decision in in July on second crop.
Okay, that's what I want.
But we're in pretty good stead.
Yeah, okay.
If we look at the projections for Lake Travis, on January 1st at midnight, we were at 667.67. That's a lot of sixes and sevens, or about 1.3 feet above the average for long-term average for January water surface elevations. And as of this morning, we dropped a couple of tenths to 667.48, or about a little over a foot above the average for January. And you can see the pretty wide array of future projections, all depending on whether or not we get a wet May and June like we have in the past, or we don't get the wet May and June. And then similarly for Lake Buchanan in January 1st at midnight, we were at 1018.37. As of this morning, we were at 1017.41, or about 7 feet above little less than 7 feet above that long-term average for January. And a little bit tighter spread there forecast for Buchanan. And then our last slide here is a comparison of the storage from last January. And as you can see, we're about 680,000 acre-feet more than this time last year. The Climate Prediction Center's precip outlook leans towards normal in February through April, and the Climate Prediction Center's temp outlook for January through April leans towards temps averaging above normal. Since I last talked to you, I've missed a couple of board meetings. A weak La Nina settled in, and it remained in place through December. The La Nina climate has historically caused a pattern of drier than normal weather across most of Texas during the fall and winter months, pushing the storm track north of Texas. Observations in early January showed a section of cooler than normal water stretching from the west coast of South America to just beyond the international date line. Additional cooling is not expected, and La Nina is predicted to remain weak through January. The CPC, or the Climate Prediction Center, forecasters feel like La Nina will end sometime this week or in early February, with a transition back to ENSO neutral conditions in February or March. And the forecast is for the Pacific to remain in ENSO neutral state through the late spring of 2026. And I believe Bob will be here with us in maybe a couple of meetings, and he can tell you way more about that than I can. But I'm willing to take any questions back to Bob if you need me to. That's all I have. Do you have any questions for me? No? All right, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 4. It's a discussion of LCRA interruptible agricultural water rates for 2026. And I know the board received 5 comments on this, so you've read those, I'm sure. Kelly, I think you're taking this.
Yes, sir. Good morning again. In November, we discussed the proposed interruptible water rate changes for the Gulf Coast, Lakeside, and Garwood agricultural divisions. Water rates are set on a calendar year as a reminder. In the next few slides, I'll present the recommended rates that will be considered later this afternoon at the board meeting, and summarize the comments we received regarding the proposed rate changes. Since we last met with the board in November, staff has been busy. We've met in the lower basin to discuss the proposed rates with the farmers in December. We met with all 3 divisions separately on December 10th at our Arbuckle admin building. and we posted the rate proposals online for public comment and reviewed the comments. And those were posted from December 11th through January 9th.
Please hold for technical difficulties. We'll get this up in a second.
We're experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand.
There we go.
We should have some.
Yeah.
background music like
Thank
that.
you. Could you just say standing till we're finished?
You date yourself immediately when you say that, right?
Yeah.
That would add to our meeting.
There's a whole group of people in this room who have no idea what I just said.
So here's a summary slide of the rates proposed for calendar year 26. As you can see in Gulf Coast and Lakeside, the proposed rate is $71.52 per acre foot, and that's a 3% increase over the rate that we last charged those customers, which was in 2022. The Garwood weighted average rate, it's got 2 pressure planes in it. And so we have a higher pressure plane that we charge more because we've got to pump it twice to get up there, and a lower pressure plane that we pump once out of the river. The Garwood weighted average of those two is $40.72. And that's also a decrease over what was charged in 2025. But that decrease is due to the fact that they've gone up in their acres planted, and we do a 3-year average. And the 3-year average now has caught up to where it's been 3 high years of acreage, so their billing units are up. And remember, if you'll remember, the rate is the cost over the billing units. So if the denominator goes up, the number goes down. And that's the reason for the decrease there, is they've just got more billing units that they can spread the costs out over than they've had. And then these are this table will be in the board agenda item this afternoon. And these are the other rates, and some of them are impacted by changes in interruptible water rates. So we want to show them here. The table summarizes the excessive use charges for each agricultural division, and these charges are an additional 40, 80, or 150% of the interruptible stored water rate for those that use excessive volumes on a field. So if you get over an allowable use per your field and start using more water, then we're going to charge you, say, in Gulf Coast, we're going to charge you $71.52 for those acre feet, plus a surcharge of 28.61 for the acre feet that are over that maximum amount. Does that make sense? In addition to the rates for interruptible stored water, the bullets at the bottom of the slide show the proposed minimum charges for contracting in those 3 divisions, and Garwood's minimum charge is not changing. The others change because they're a percentage of their rate. Any questions on any of that? So just to kind of summarize things, interruptible rates are recalibrating to a 3% increase from the last delivery period for Gulf Coast and Lakeside. If you'll recall, the last 3 years, we've raised those rates as part of our rate-making process, but we have not charged those. And the decision was made that impacting those farmers with rates that they had never really seen before wasn't palatable for us. And so we decided to go back to the last time we charged them rates and start the increases now. And so that's a 3% increase there. And we talked about the Garwood decrease due to the increase in forecast billing units. We met with all the farmers, not all the farmers, all the farmers that came to the meetings in December to discuss the rates. We posted draft documents for review on the web. The interruptible stored water availability will be determined on March 1st, 2026, depending on storage and basin conditions as per the 2020 Water Management Plan. And we will bring an agenda item to the board this afternoon to adopt these rates.
Excuse me, Kelly.
Yes, sir.
You said this earlier, but would you repeat it? What's the trigger date for second crop water?
July 1st. Yes, sir.
And at what level? What lake level? Triggers that.
John's gonna look real quick. I believe it's,
Under the current water management plans, below 1.4,
There
if you're
would
in
be
less
some
severe
sort of-
drought. If you're in normal drought, it would be below 1.3.
no drought.
So it'll be a function of storage and inflows to determine whether you're in normal or less severe drought.
So we did receive 5 comments from the public and provided them to the board last week for review. One of those comments submitted was about lowering Lake Austin, and that's not really germane to the topic here, so I'm not going to cover that one. In general, the tone of the comments submitted included a belief that using water, bless you, for agriculture is wasteful. Ag rates should be higher to promote more conservation-minded practices. LCRA should not recover the full cost of interruptible water rate, or should cover, LCRA should recover the full cost of interruptible water through rates. The Ag Reserve Fund should not be used for interruptible water uses not related to food production, and LCRA should never lower rates. In response to these comments, I would offer the following. Agricultural use is recognized as a beneficial use by the state. LCRA intends to continue making interruptible water supply available in the ag operations in the lower basin when available pursuant to the water management plan and our contractual agreements. We intend to continue with this approach of mitigating against higher rate increases by using the Ag Reserve Fund while it still has money in it. And additionally, we understand that the rate proposed for Gulf Coast and Lakeside is lower than the rate the board approved last year, but as compared to the last time the farmers actually received water, it is an increase. That's all I have. Do y'all have any questions for me?
I want to make one comment. 10 years ago this month, Joe and I and Steve Ballas sat in with Phil and John and coming out of the historic drought. And I just want to say, number one, that y'all, the whole water division, Phil, have been consistent. It's more or less, you're talking about rates and how we determine them. John, you remember 10 years ago? Again, if you don't have something, and everybody here needs to always remember, and it's not because I'm speaking for anything other than the whole basin is what we have a plan put in place. Interruptible water is interruptible water. I mean, we get calls from bankers all the time. I don't know how they finance farmers not knowing whether or not they're gonna be able to have water to finish a crop, but that's their problem, not a problem here. It's just that I appreciate the fact, and I think we appreciate the fact that we're consistent with what we're trying to do and the mandate that we have and operate it properly. But again, interruptible water is interruptible water, cut off at any time. That's why it's priced as it is. And if you try to run your business, any other business like that, so it's a tough deal, so. Anything.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Next item is discussions of water management plan amendment. Monica Masters. And before we start up, the public comment process on this plan is still open through February 3rd, so comments can be made through the LCRA website.
All right. Good morning. Today, we're going to go through the update of the water management plan process, and we're going to lay out our recommendation for approval. So to quickly review, again, the water management plan is a state-approved plan that governs the operations of LCRA's water supply lakes, Travis and Buchanan, to supply water to our users throughout the basin. It is required by a 1988 court order that determined water rights for the Highland Lakes and the lower Colorado River Basin. It allows LCRA to provide interruptible water from storage for ag, provided we don't impair our ability to meet the needs of our firm customers. And it helps meet the environmental needs of the lower Colorado River and Matagorda Bay. So why did we update the plan? The current plan, which is the 2020 Water Management Plan, required the update process to begin in 2025. And each time we update the Water Management Plan, it begins with an update of the hydrology, this time through 2023, and an update to the firm water demands. So the key requirements of the 2032 Water Management Plan. So we've titled it 2032 because that's the demands go through 2032. So we're forward-looking. First, we have the adjudication order, which provides that when firm demand is less than firm yield, interruptible water may be available. To the extent an interruptible demand exists, stored water should be made available. However, interruptible water should be curtailed as necessary to allow LCRA to satisfy existing and projected firm demands. Next, we have the TCEQ framework, which specifies the following. The plan should curtail interruptible water to maintain a minimum combined storage above 600,000 acre-feet through the period of record, which includes the drought of record. And the plan should include water supply conditions providing for curtailment of interruptible water that incorporate combined storage and inflows. And then finally, we have the 2020 Water Management Plan order, which requires that the process be designed to allow meaningful input from interested participants. So next we'll just recap what we've been working on. So in spring of 2025, LCRA presented updated demands to 2032, which included a 20 to 30% increase in our firm demands, and LCRA extended the hydrology through 2023. During the summer of 25, we developed an initial approach which meets the TCEQ framework by reducing interruptible stored water allocations to meet the demand of the second highest year, raising trigger levels to less severe drought and extraordinary drought, reducing in-stream flow obligations at Wharton and Columbus, and reducing the monthly caps and release percentages for Bay criteria. And then during the summer and into the fall of 25, we received input from our participants. And then in November of last year, LCRA staff responded to comments from all of the previous meetings, and we shared our recommended approach. In December of 25, staff responded to comments from the November meetings, and then throughout the process, we have met numerous times with all of the various interest groups. So here is our staff recommendation, and this is what we presented to the participants at the November 20th meeting. Keeping in mind that this recommendation meets the TCEQ framework, it reflects the input from our participants, and it results in a minimum combined modeled storage of about 640,000 acre-feet. So we start off with what did not change, and the basic objectives: meet the firm demands without shortage and maintain a minimum combined storage above 600,000 acre-feet. What also didn't change was the TCEQ framework. We have 3 water supply conditions: normal, less severe drought, and extraordinary drought. We have 2 evaluation dates for interruptible water availability for ag, that's March 1st and July 1st. Maintain the look-ahead test, and we maintain the environmental flow criteria. So then we'll go through the key changes from the 2020 Water Management Plan for interruptible stored water for ag. You can see them all here. Under normal conditions, the maximum allocation of interruptible stored water is reduced to 125,000 acre-feet from 178,000 acre-feet. For less severe drought, the trigger for entering is raised to 1.7 million acre-feet from 1.5 million acre-feet, and the maximum allocation is reduced to 96,000 acre-feet from 155,000 acre-feet. Under extraordinary drought, the trigger for entering is raised to 1.5 million acre feet from 1.3 million acre feet, and the drought duration criteria for entering is lowered to 14 months from 18 months. And for any time cutoff, the trigger is raised to 1.1 million acre feet from 1 million acre feet. And the key changes for our environmental flows: for in-stream flows, the obligations for Columbus and Wharton are reduced when combined storage is below 1.3 million acre feet, and then further reduced below 900,000 acre feet. And the trigger for base dry was increased from 1.8 to 1.86 million acre feet. For Matagorda Bay inflows, the monthly caps on storable inflows available to Bay were reduced, and the percentage of storable inflows available to the Bay were reduced as well. When we started this process, we started with the 2020 Water Management Plan model with the 2032 demands and the updated hydrology through 2023. And that model had an output of a minimum combined storage of about 500,000 acre feet, so well below the required 600,000. So after all the modifications that we just talked about, after all the modifications to the water management plan that we will discuss, the 2032 water management plan recommendation includes a minimum combined storage of about 640,000 acre feet. So this chart shows where we started with the 2020 water management plan with the 2032 conditions, which is that first column of numbers, versus the 2032 water management plan recommendation. So under this recommendations, here's the results for our first crop season. As I mentioned, stored water made available for first crop season is being reduced to 125,000 acre feet from 178,000 acre feet. The number of years full first crop stored water is supplied is 58 years. Now keep in mind, this is out of the 84 years of the period of hydrology in the model. So out of 84 years, full first crop supplied is 58 of those years. And the number of years of partial curtailment is 10 years, which was increased from 7. And the number of years no stored water is made available is now 16 years. And then for the second crop season, the maximum stored water made available for, it's a big old fly, sorry. Maximum stored water made available for second crop remains at 66,000 acre feet. And there are 57 years where full second crop stored water is supplied, reduced from 64 years. So again, that's out of the 84 years of hydrology, 57 years where full second crop stored water is supplied. So then we move to the environmental flows, and again, there's two areas. For in-stream flow results, subsistence attainment continues at 99% or better. And for Matagorda Bay inflow results, we reach a threshold attainment of 96%. So our immediate next steps, we are in the midst of public comment. And like you said, they will end on February 3rd. We've also noted that throughout the process, we have met with all of our interested parties multiple times, and we will continue to meet with anyone as we get requests. And so the timeline to finish out this process, today we're sharing our staff recommendation. Next month, we will share with you the public comments that we've received and our staff responses, and we will request LCRA board approval of the water management plan. With the February board approval, we will prepare the application and submit it to TCEQ in March. We're hoping to have the update in place by the 2027 ag season. And that's our recommendation, and we're happy to take any questions.
Monica, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Interruptible stored water that's provided for irrigation, flood irrigation, and it's maintained during the still maturity of the crop, and then it's drained off, which the capacity could be easily 10 to 25% of the total inflows for irrigation.
Okay.
Do we get any credit for that, particularly on environmental flows?
To the extent that it shows up in anything that is gauged, yes. To the extent that it filters out into the Bay system somewhere, it is not.
Well, John, if we all agree that it's a 10 to 25% of the total sold, used, then there's a number there that we should get credit for.
There's been some attempts to try to quantify it, and frankly, it's been difficult to quantify because we don't know how much of it actually percolates down and becomes a part of the groundwater supply versus how much stays at the surface and moves out. It's been a challenge in terms of, and that's not just in this context. In other contexts down along the coastal regions, there have been attempts to try to quantify that, and it's just been real difficult to get your arms around it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
It's a good question. It's an ongoing question about return flows and recharge, and it's going to have to do with, hopefully we're dealing more with some of the entities like we've contacted through that study watersheds and things like that. Research has to be done, and I mean, Joe's absolutely right. We're just behind in Texas in doing that as far as I'm concerned compared to what I know from the western regions, so anyway.
There's a broader issue at play too within the context of firm customer usage, because for firm customers that have wastewater discharges, there's often interest in trying to get some type of puts and takes credit for, if I take this much in and use it and then treat it and put this much back, how come I don't get credit for the delta?
Right.
And the way that we account for water in Texas and bill for water in Texas is all based off of how much you divert,
Right.
not on how much you may actually return back at some point. So there's a broader policy question that's kind of hanging out there, particularly as people begin to fight over return flows and what ownership of those return flows and the benefit of those return flows.
We have a lot of work to do in Texas as it pertains to water. We're short and need some, and we need to make sure it's all accounted for properly.
Any other comments or questions? Do we have a need to go in executive session? None. We've got a couple of minutes here. John, maybe John or Monica can address this, but over the years, as we've gone through these processes on water management plan, periodically there's been comments or challenges to the modeling we use. Mm-hmm. And for the newer members of the board and members of the public, could you shed a little light on how all this came to be and what model, where the basis is for the modeling that we use and who else
Sure.
depends on that?
Sure. For the longest time, LCRA had the only water management plan in the state. Now there's more than one. The Brazos Basin also has a water management plan. And it's fundamentally a modeling exercise, and it's based off of the water availability models that the state of Texas uses to allocate water resources and manage water resources and permit water resources. So there's a family of water availability models that were created by a professor down at Texas A&M University that has been the predominant model that has been used in most river basins throughout the state of Texas. Most of the river basins in Texas are running off models that have data sets that run through the late 90s. Unless they've had a major update to a major permit that's required them to update their modeling, they have not had updates in their modeling. Whereas the LCRA's water availability model, because we have these periodic updates to our water management plan, we have to update our inputs. And so our hydrology has been updated every time we've done a water availability model update. So this last one has taken our data up through year 2023, which will be obviously, when you, in the context of most of the state of Texas running off models running with 90s era data sets, is 30 years more frequent, more recent. We get the benefit of knowing that that is helping our model to be more reflective of the hydrology that's occurred since then, but we've also had a major drought, a significant drought that occurred, and that is our new drought of record during that time period as well. So we call them WAMs for short water availability model. Our WAM now includes that data through that 2011 era drought that for us is our drought of record. I suspect there may be other river basins in the state that it'll be real close, if not maybe a new drought of record for them too, but you don't know that till you update the data and run it. So our data has had to go through a pretty extensive process to be basically QA'd or quality assured to where it's fit to be able to put into and run in the model. And it's a fairly labor-intensive undertaking that our staff has to go through, along with the staff of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. Because at the end of the day, that water availability model has to go to TCEQ, and they have to be comfortable with both the process used to update the model, the way that the model runs, and the way that the model creates output. That output is what Monica was quoting when she was talking to you about the different years of curtailment, the different years of partial curtailment, the different years of when we have second crop availability. All of those outputs are the result of running the water availability model with this updated hydrology and then with these inputs of greater demands for our firm customers projected out through the year 2032. So we are often in our basin debating good and better versions of the model as opposed to whether it's a functional model or whether it's reflective of reality or not. There's always a desire to see more recent hydrologic data input into these things, particularly if you're concerned that last year was maybe a really dry year and that there's a driver in that for the model. I can tell you in terms of what drives the fundamental outputs in this, your worst droughts are the biggest drivers for everything that happens. So for us, those drought years from 2008 to 2015, especially the 2011, 2013 time period, are our biggest drivers for what we have to do for triggers and the biggest drivers for what we have to do for overall interruptible availability and the biggest drivers for when it's available and when it's not. So at a real high level, our stakeholders, our participants in our water management plan process get to go through that update process with us, and they have a knowledge that we have these updated models in place. Now, everybody has reasons why they want to see something more recent or slightly different inputs put into the model. But I think across the whole, our groups are pretty comfortable with the fact that we have a very quality assured, recently updated tool that we use for managing our resources.
Yeah. Thank you, John. I think the takeaway here is that there's not another river basin in the state that's as scrutinized as ours. and I've always had a lot of confidence in the product our staff turns out. Because I've been around here a long time and been through this, but that's an important takeaway. That's the reason I want him to give you the background on this.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would just add, the team's done a really thorough job, to your point.
Exactly.
But they've also been very collaborative with TCEQ, to echo what John said. This is our water management plan, but it's TCEQ's framework and math. So in a sense, we have all the stakeholder engagement that everyone's echoed. It's a very collaborative, thoughtful process with the chance for the public to participate no matter where you sit in the basin, whether you're upper basin, lower basin, whether you're firm interruptible, whether you're a stakeholder interest or not. And so the desire is to take all of that and at the end of the day, base it on science.
Right.
This is a scientific model. And we've added a lot of extra tools because forecasting continues to get better, understanding scarcity of supply and where we're trying to go and meet all of the demands in that highly scrutinized area. And TCEQ, through this whole process, has to be able to give it the stamp of approval based on the model they understand and help build. And so we turn our homework in consultation with them, but they've got to give us that check the box in this process. Great. So I really want to echo what you said. John, Monica, their entire team, the modelers, the forecasters internally, and then working with the stakeholder groups as well. This process can be contentious, but this one has not been because people have been professional. They've been thoughtful. They've tried to base it on science and understanding we all have different approaches to where we're coming from. understanding we're trying to protect these lakes long-term. And it's really about Buchanan and Travis. That's what the water management plan's about, and how do you ensure that we have long-term sustainability. And I believe this plan they presented to you today and we'll vote on next month really achieves those objectives in a very meaningful way.
Yeah, our basin interests are varied. They're really diverse, and they're very passionate. They're very passionate about this river and this reservoir system. They don't all agree on things, and there's not a single one of those interest groups that walks out of this process thinking they got everything they wanted. But we've listened very carefully to what all of them have had to say, and we've tried to be very, very thoughtful and considerate about what they've had to say and integrate that as much as possible into the draft plan that we're going to recommend to you today. So just know that that's been an ongoing process, and you may hear from time to time from different folks that have a different take on this, and we've tried to be very respectful and honor those requests as they come in, knowing where they're coming from. They're coming from a good place. They're coming from where their perspective is and how they see the river and how they see the reservoir and what's important for them. You know, where you sit's where you stand.
When you bring up TCEQ, what a lot of people don't understand, what's also going to go into to their decision on what they do on this water management plan is the fact that the Texas Water Development Board, which I participate in Region P on that board. Region K pretty much governs ours. There's some mostly, I would say, Monica, that covers most of our basin, correct? Yes. As I've said. So they may use, in some, we've talked about the drought of the 50s as record. And they may, and I know there's some delta, some variable, whatever it may be, but the problem is the fact that they're going to use their data that each one of these groups has put in to help determine whether our plan is feasible or not. So it's not, we're doing the best we can, but they still have a say-so, and they come in and tweak it, correct? So, because of those interests. Thank you.
Well, for no other comments or questions, and I'll adjourn this meeting. We'll move on to the next one.